Very important session in the continuation of the 6th series that I will be doing on governance. I think today's ranks very high in importance. So recruitment of boards, importance. Today is a very heavy, very, there's a lot of information to get through. So with no further ado, we will go forth. Okay. There are previous learning that's been done on the governance and strategic leadership, so please check with the OrgWise form, and a lot of the questions that would dealt with in previous sessions, as well as ongoing conversation with the governance and strategic leadership and training can be noted there. I also listed some resources today for your benefit, so if you have a chance, check out the two resources on basically recruitment. I found them very helpful in the designing of this particular topic. So today's objective is basically to look at how do you do the needs assessment in recruiting, do you have a recruitment plan, how do you train board members, and how do you manage board members so that they can actually be effective and help the organization to grow. I should say again, at any point, please feel free to type in questions in the chat box, and I will get to them. If I don't get to them today, then I will get to them on Thursday, the 25th, between 10 and 11 when we do the Q&A. So individuals come forth and they want to volunteer. So most individuals who volunteer to enrich their knowledge, to do lifelong learning, and it's an opportunity for them to get to know your organization. StatsCan 2010 reported that 47% of the population volunteer. I've also listed the StatCan website, so if you wanted a little bit more historical information on the demographics that volunteer, why they volunteer, and region per sector, then it's a good resource for you to check into as you're doing the recruitment phase. I find this piece is actually very interesting, so it helps you to gauge or structure your resources for recruitment. So recruitment, basically, it's the heart to maintaining, sustaining, and getting people interested in your organization. When you do your recruitment, it should be people who are active member in the community. An active member can be someone who is a teacher or someone who runs a play group. They basically just have to be involved in the community and know about their demographic, about the population, about the resources that are available within their particular community. I'm not saying that they have to be an expert on it, but they should have some idea of the happening within their community. It makes it much easier when they step into the role of a board member to kind of understand the purpose that you're serving. So this is the piece around to effectively recruit good board members and create an effective board. The organization, hold on a minute, please. Can I
just close that one again?
Sorry, just technical problem here. The organization should include active members from the community who accurately reflects the diversity of the demographic. Key piece here, accurately reflect the diversity of the demographic. Nothing worse than having a board member where it's one culture, one gender, and it doesn't speak to the makeup of the community. Then I think we're misguided if we are doing that type of structure, because you need the different view, the different perspective, and the more diverse the board is, the more you're able to deal with issues from the vast majority of individuals in the community. Okay, moving on. There's a video that I wanted us to have a quick look at. To see the full clip, I have given you the link at the bottom. It's taken from Greenlight's nonprofit organization, and we'll just spend the next couple of seconds to just watch that video. I hope it works.
It's important that when you're recruiting new board members, you're very clear up front during the recruitment process what the expectations are, and frankly what the situation is that they're coming into. How does
often have a board member agreement. I know many organizations do this, and that sets out the expectations from the beginning. And we remind people of that. We have a little one-page document that goes in every board packet that sort of maps out their obligations, what they've committed to do, and how they're doing. People don't set out to be poor board members, and sometimes we bring them on and then grow our expectations. So I think being specific going into the process about exactly what we want from someone, and they can either get that or they cannot.
Okay, I think this is very important as we step into the realms of recruiting. The piece that was key in that video for me is they can either meet the objective or they cannot. And it's very important when you are about to recruit board members. I was having a discussion before the session started with one of the members in the organization in regards to when is a good time to do the recruitment. I'm of the belief that recruitment happen on a yearly basis. And the analogy was made of you're romancing me, you're dating me, you're taking me out to dinner as a potential board member. And what I mean by that is if you're recruiting me in January, but the boards do not do their election until December, then a good thing is that you send me out meetings, you send me out fundraising events, newsletters. You just kind of keep me abreast of the stuff that's going on within the organization. You give me that entire year for me to kind of learn more about the organization, to fall a little bit more in love with what you do. So if you're doing a year-long recruitment, there stands a better chance of you getting the quality of individuals that you're looking for, rather than, okay, it's now September, the board is about to turn around, and then it's feast or famine to try and fill those spots. So I think you have to have an active recruiting committee in place with clear vision of how you go about doing the recruiting to ensure that you actually get the people you're looking for. So it's important that when you do the recruitment, that the people you're recruiting, they understand the legal piece around what they're going to be doing on the board. Everything you vote on, every decision you make, you have the legal responsibility for that. You also want to develop directors who are specific, that's going to be able to help you meet the specific needs of the organization. You don't want someone that is coming on that have their own personal agenda. You have to fit in. So doing a year-long recruitment allow you to kind of, get a better sense of who this individual is. Are they going to fit in with the existing board? Are they going to fit in with the people you're recruiting? Are they going to fit in with the executive director and the staff? And that's crucial, because if you don't have those team of individuals working together, then you're going to spend a lot of time putting out fires. So it's important that the people that you're recruiting can meet the specific needs of the organization. Again, as I said before, it's important to have a nominating committee or a committee that can look at what are the needs of the board. They basically oversee the recruitment process in consultation with the executive director. And this piece is key. You can go and recruit boards for the sake, members for the sake of recruiting, or you could be strategic about it. And if you're strategic about how you do it, based on the growth of the organization or the change in the community, then you will elicit the people who really need to be there. I've sat on boards where half of the people I've wondered, why are you volunteering? Because you're not interested in what we're doing. It may look good on your resume, but you're not actually actively involved in the meeting, which is a waste of my time, and it's a waste of any board member's time when you sit around the table with individuals who really do not want to be there. So what to look for when you're looking for board members? It's very important that they have the ability to listen, that they can analyze, that they can think creatively and work with one-on-one, because when you do the you send them off on a mission and you say this needs to be researched, you need to understand this issue, they have to be able to identify someone in the group that they can work with and do that. They also have to be able to work within the group. They have to be able to work with staff members. They have to be able to work as part of a team. That they're honest, that they have a sensitivity to and a tolerance to different views. There's nothing worse than someone saying, Yes, I'm inclusive. Yes, I've checked my bias at the door. But then you bring an issue around the table, and then all of a sudden the reality comes out. So I think part of the recruitment phase is to make sure that those biases are actually examined, that people can sit at the table with individuals whose lifestyle may not reflect those, that people of gender that may not reflect their own as well, that they're okay with it, of orientation, of culture, that language, education, background, all of that plays a key part in who you're looking for and are they the fit. Because I come forward and I say I want to volunteer doesn't necessarily mean that I should be accepted in that role. If I don't fit and I don't have the criteria you're looking for, maybe there's something else within the organization that you can use me for. Maybe board member is not the ideal. So until I have done my own training and I'm ready to be more open, maybe, you're doing a fundraiser and you need me to help you with the fundraiser, my skills might be better served there. Okay? A willingness to learn about the organization. Actually, that's why you're there, is because you want to help the organization grow. Be prepared to attend board meetings. There's nothing worse than you have monthly meetings and the same people are missing time and time and time again. You can't move a process, you can't move the organization forward if you don't have a quorum or you have enough people to make a vote. The other thing is, if it's the same voice that are being heard, that's why you're doing diversity. It's because you want to be able to see, to hear different perspective, to see different reality. And if we're continually having the same people at the board meeting, then what ends up happening is we're not able to achieve the things that we would like to achieve. Okay? Give us 30 seconds. We're dealing with a little bit of technical difficulty here, and then I will be back on. So I noticed that the screen is probably covering part of the slide. So if you just give us a minute, we'll remove that. Okay. I just need the next slide. Ready? Here's a question. Okay. There is a question posed about how to screen for bias. Very interesting question, because when someone comes forth and they say they're ready to be a board member, I think there are certain issues that if you're an organization, for instance, you are a feminist organization, and you have your mandate that your service is going to always be based on inclusive behavior, then there is a way to find out if that person truly have those particular value set. So asking simple questions around their perspective of how do they see issues. Ask them to speak to issues. I think if you engage someone in the process of, those difficult situation around race, around gender, orientation, then you start hearing their value statement. And through that value statement, then you're better able to assess whether or not that person has actually checked their biases, or are they operating still from the assumption of their own belief that is clouded by that bias. I will actually put up on the forum on Thursday, a checklist of how to actually ensure that the characteristics you're looking for and what people are presenting match. So please check back on Thursday between 10 and 11, and I will have a checklist to help to further answer that particular question. Okay? The other thing is, as a board member, you should be friendly, responsive, and patient to the process. Not every issue is going to happen within one meeting. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 meetings for you to understand the issue and move forward. So you have to have patience with the process, and you have to have patience with the people around you. You are a team, and this is the team that guides the process. So being responsive and being open helps that process to happen more smoothly. The person should have some idea of community development skills. I mean, it's not a make or break situation if they don't have it, but they should have a willingness to learn community development, because a lot of the work that you do in nonprofit organization is around community development. So not having that skill is actually a negative for you as a board member. And I would say if I'm going to join a board where I know community development is a big piece of it, then that's something that I would have to do a lot of education myself to ensure that I'm able to meet the needs. So when we sit and we talk about strategic planning, I already know how to fit in my viewpoint around strategic planning and community development. Have a great sense of a great sense of humor and good judgment. Be able to laugh at yourself and be able to make judgments that are sound. I think people take themselves way too seriously sometimes in the role. Yes, you need to be serious and you need to be professional, but sometimes when you're stuck in a process, there's nothing like a good laugh, and you don't have to laugh at the expense of other, but just something that, the levity helps the process move forward. Good judgment, unfortunately, we can't teach good judgment. So it's one of those skills that I think it's hard to assess if someone has good judgment when you're doing the recruitment. But if you're asking them stuff like, if you got $25,000 and it wasn't recorded somewhere, and you were the person responsible for signing checks, what would you do with that check? I mean, their answer will determine right away how honest they are and their judgment, right? They should also have personal integrity, concern for the growth and development of the organization. If you're not concerned for the growth of the organization, then the organization becomes stagnant. And if the organization becomes stagnant, then funding decrease, because if you as a board isn't recruiting individuals who see the bigger picture, then it's impossible when the staff or the executive director comes and says, these are the policies or procedures that needs to be put in place. So as an end result, I think it's very important that you have to be able to be concerned, wanting that organization to develop more than it was when you joined. You should leave it better than you found it. That's basically what I'm trying to say. The role of the executive director in recruiting. Again, please type questions as they come to you. The role of the executive director, that person should be involved in the recruitment process. They should be sitting down with the chair of the board, the current chair of the board, given some guidance around the new skills that is necessary based on the changes that are happening either in funding or in program. And then the chair should then take it to the committee and basically says, here are the criteria that we're looking for the new members that we're going to be recruiting. The executive director also has a lot of the historical information about that organization, so that person serves as a wealth of information to support the chair and the recruitment committee. I think it's beneficial that you engage the staff and the executive director in the process as well as volunteer, because they can give you more of an idea of what it is that's missing in the current board, as well as the trends and changes that are happening. So in the process of recruitment, each organization should have a recruitment process. Bottom line, it's not okay to have a board member come on board and you just give them a bunch of books. It's not okay that you identify 2 weeks before the person is about to leave the board, that's when you need a board member. You should have a process. It should be in a binder somewhere so that anyone who joins the recruitment committee understands how we do recruitment for the board. Why do you do recruitment? Why is it necessary? There should also be a job description and duties for every position that that person is going to take on within the board. So when I come forward and I say I'm interested in the board, then you can say, are you interested in the following? And then you give me a job description so then I can look at it and say, okay, I have the skill set to help move this process along based on the duties that is highlighted. It helps the process for the new members to integrate with the existing members, and it actually helps to reduce the time that it takes for you to actually learn your job. Because if I have, it's like any employment, right? Although this is a volunteer position, it's the same as paid employment, and it should be given the same value as paid employment. If you don't give me my job description and you don't outline the duties, then I don't know what it is that's expected of me. So when I fail, then you shouldn't be surprised that I fail, right? And then once board members have said, yes, I'm interested. So for instance, someone comes in January, as I was saying, and they're interested, they can sign a letter of commitment. They can say, I'm ready to say that come August or September, I am ready to take on the responsibility. But in the sign-in of that, it means that I, as a new recruitee, is going to take the opportunity while I'm waiting to become a board member to learn about the organization. It's not only the role of the chair of the board or the executive director in the recruitment process, but it's also the responsibility of the individual who's stepping forward to say they're interested in volunteering to learn about the organization. And I think the biggest mistake that we make is that we assume that people are coming with a skill set that's going to move the organization. If you don't train board members as what it is needed to help the organization grow, you're not going to get very skilled board members. So we're going to talk a little bit about the steps to recruit. A very good tool is the nonprofit corporate, the act that basically outlines nonprofit organization and the whole idea of how to do board recruiting, how to do board governance. It's a very good tool. I suggest that the link is right here, that you take a look, and it will actually give you a really, it's not easy to understand, so you'll have to spend some time actually breaking it down. And I think this is a great strategic planning day exercise. So when the old board is about to go out and you have your planning day, one of the things that you can do is break down the bylaws piece for the incoming board so that they understand how it is in keeping with their new roles. So I have another question here as basically, do we give the commitment letter before acceptance to the board? I think that once you have accepted your role as a board member, that's when you would get the commitment letter. To me, it's not a document you really want floating out there. If you're not interested in the board, then basically I shouldn't be giving you a commitment letter. The commitment is basically saying, I am interested, I want more information, and once the criteria process has gone through, I will serve on the board for the 2 years or 5 years as outlined within your mandates of the organization. So I would recommend that commitment letter, you hold off on it until the person is committed to the organization. Hence, it's called commitment letter. Again, establish clear bylaws. Okay, and the bylaws includes information about the boards of directors and the electoral process. So here I've cut and paste just one subsection of the bylaws, section 10, around the laws for members. I'm not going to read it to you, but what I would challenge you to do is to go to the site and actually download the bylaw section and have a read. If you haven't done it before, this is a good time for you as a board member to do so. If you are the executive director and your board haven't done it, then I recommend you make a copy for them and encourage them to go through it. Okay? The building cycle of a board. It's a very interesting process, and there's a gentleman by the name of, just give me a minute, I can find it, who has spent a lot of time doing work on the 9 steps of basically setting up and recruiting board members. So Brett Leahy is his name, and I noted the reference at the beginning, and in the next slide you'll actually see it as well. So you identify, cultivate, recruit, orient, involve, educate, evaluate, rotate, key piece, rotate, and celebrate. So what I'm going to do now is look individually at each of these sections and see how it works specifically to the recruitment process and build in a good board. So identify, again, where the people are at. So how do you find out where the people are at? When you are in the community, your staff is out doing stuff. We have individuals who come up and they basically are, what does your organization do? So that's one tool to find out interested people. The other is you can post a request on the newspaper or the community board saying, we're currently recruiting board members with a job description. So just don't post, we're looking for board members, because you know what? Anybody could be looking for board members, but I want to know what it is you're looking for. Target it to the areas that you are actually looking. So identify where you need to fill in on your board. So do you need diversity? So am I talking diversity in language, diversity in education, diversity in understanding of the issue? Identify the people that you need on the board. And that should be done at the committee level before you start the recruitment. Make sure that diversity is a big part of that identification. Inclusivity, safe space, all of that need to also be part of what you identify, okay? Make it manageable. So the other thing is, if you put an advertisement out that we're now looking for board members, are you advertising for 5 people, 10 people, 20 people? How many people exist on your board currently? How many of them are leaving? How many of them are continuing? So that's also important. Is your board size 10 people, 20 people? Your bylaws determine that size, right? That number. So it's important that you understand and make sure it's manageable. So the profile of the individual should fit with the needs of the organization. Cultivate. Develop a list of potential board members year-round, right? Forge relationship with organizations that you may not have relationship with, and through that you might be able to get some members. So if you're reaching out to the hospital, to the doctors, to the lawyers, to the school teachers, to the crossing guard, forge those relationships so that when you are ready to recruit members, you have a list of potential candidate. The other thing is, sometimes the people who criticize you the most in the community becomes your biggest advocate. So when you have those people who are constantly criticizing you, why don't you approach them with a job description and say, hey, maybe your resources would serve our organization to help us move the process along. And that way you have a critic has become an ally. Recruit. Again, the fit. Are you what we need? Right? Very important. Because you're at my door doesn't mean I have to let you in, right? So are you what I need? When you go through the selection process, how do you make that process? You know, who is making the decision of the best fit? Is it because we put an ad out and only 5 people replied to the ad, so therefore we're going to take that 5? Sometimes it's better for you to take the 2 that fits and then, you know, work on it. I mean, it's important that you constantly have the quorum. You can't operate a board if you don't have the numbers to do so. So it's important that you spend the time to do the recruitment so that your board numbers always stay to the mandated. If it's 10 or 20, that you do have that. And once someone is identified that they're leaving the board, then you should know if that's the area you're going to be filling, or do you need another expertise, right? Have names be brought forward by staff, by volunteers, by students in the community. How many of your boards actually look out for young people, the voice of the 20-somethings? You know, they have as much say about what happens in their community as someone who is 65 or 85. So it's important when we're looking at that diversity that we reach out to the young people and make them viable people on the board. I've sat on many boards where it's been amazing to have young voices because they bring a perspective that I at the time was so far removed from. So it kept things fresh, right? And then once they've done that, then you elect them, and then the appointment happens. So follow the process. Just don't have someone come and say, okay, I'm here, I heard you have a spot, and I'm interested, you know, and then someone says, okay, welcome aboard. There has to be a process. It has to be systematic, and it has to meet with the needs that your organization actually have. Orientation, big piece, and I will be doing the next session on July 30th about how do you do board orientation. Provide them with resources. And I just don't mean give them a bunch of binders and say, go read. Okay? Me reading it does not give me the historical contents enough of the functionality I need. So once I've read it, there should be, it's almost like you should give me a test, right? There should be this checklist that I have to go through to make sure that I actually read the binders. I mean, I joined a board about 15 years ago, and they actually gave us 5 binders, and then they gave, you know, 2 months down the road, the executive director gave us a little evaluation sheet, and we had to fill out some questions. And it was a good thing for me because it forced me to have to actually read the resources. It wasn't exactly the most interesting, but it made me a better board member because I actually knew the history of the organization. Provide historical information, not just the executive director saying, we started in 1920 and we've existed from this and we moved from the, no, that's not good enough, okay? Provide them with a resource within the organization, the archive, that they can go out and do some of their own learning. This is the other piece that I think in the orientation piece, it's important that board members take on the challenge of wanting to learn the historical information. It's not okay for you to come in and pass, a request and rubber stamp something without understanding why you are now doing that. So in minute keeping, it becomes very important that you keep very good minutes that's clear and concise. So new board members, when they're looking for the historical piece, whether it's on why the staff is paid the way they are, or why we have a new program, how the program was designed, you need to know that. And if that's something the board had a say in, it should be documented. I've said this many times and I'll keep saying it, include the executive director and the staff in the orientation. They're the ones who know the organization better than anyone, and their input is as important as the chair of the board. Impress upon new board recruits that you want them to be active member. You're not just coming to add a title to your resume. You're coming because you have knowledge, expertise, skills, and we're looking to you to bring those to help us to grow. And if you're not committed to that, then really maybe you should think about something else, okay? Board job description, very, very important, right? Again, if you follow the site here, there is a sample of a job description for a board. It was too lengthy for me to cut and paste, so I thought I would just give you the link, and then you can go there. On the web, several examples of board job descriptions, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm not a person that believes in reinventing the wheel. If it's been done, that you take it, and then as long as you give homage to the person who designed it, basically you can augment it to your needs. So, I recommend that if you do not have this in place, that you start working backwards and go put it in place before you do your next recruitment. Create job descriptions that includes the minute requirements and as well as meetings. So how many meetings a month am I going to be attending? How many hours are you asking me to volunteer? Am I going to be required to sit on other committees? So make sure that the job description is clear and concise. So when I read it, I can walk away saying, this is a fit for me. This is something I want to do. Okay, I shouldn't have ambiguity once I've finished reading the job description, because the more questions I have, the less likely I am wanting to volunteer. Okay? Involve. Get everyone involved in the process as well. Get everyone involved in, everyone has a role and a purpose. So what is the executive director's role in recruitment? What is the staff role? What is the chair role? What is the committee's role? Who gives recommendation to whom? And once all those recommendations is put forward, what do you do with it? All right? So get people involved, including the existing board members. So the existing board member may have connection in the community as well. Ask them to do some recommendation. Bring some name forward. Strive for inclusion, right? That you are an inclusive process, and if you work in an inclusive process, then the new members, when they come in, will feel that. It will radiate with them, and it will make the process of assimilating into the new board that much easier. No roles and responsibility, and it goes back again to, if I'm hiring you for a job, you should know why I'm hiring you. So if I'm hiring you for a board, I should know my roles and responsibility. Do the education. So once I have showed an interest, it's your responsibility as an existing board to educate me, right? To give me opportunities to learn. So if you're not providing me opportunities to learn, then I'm just dead weight around the meetings. And then when you're asking difficult questions or difficult decision-making time of me, you won't get the best from me. So once you have board members, it's also important that you need to educate them. You also need to educate the community about what you do, so that the more you educate the community about what you do, the more you will have people stepping forward saying, I like that. I want to be involved. I want to help you to achieve your goal. right? Use the resources that are available to you. So if there are free community bulletin board, there are free newspaper in the community, advertise in them. But the other thing is, word of mouth, I find, is the best way, to recruit. Is the education piece goes back to how well did you keep minutes of meeting? How well did you document what happened within that organization? So if you started out of the basement of a church and now you're operating in a 10-story building, how did you get there? That education is key. So when board member comes on, they should also have that education, right? So again, documentation, documentation, documentation. Even the process of recruiting should be documented. So you talk to somebody about wanting to be involved and they say to you, your process doesn't work for me, that's a great opportunity for you to evaluate, okay? Once you become a board member, you also need to provide the training. You need to train, you need to educate, you need to give them opportunities to learn more than they already have. Also, I think it's important that the recruiting committee educate themselves about what is needed, what is missing. So this is where having a good relationship with the executive director, you can then talk about, okay, do we need someone who's coming in that have fundraising? Do we need someone in marketing? Do we need someone who can do community engagement? What partnerships are missing? Have we done a strategic plan to understand where the board is going before we do the recruitment, right? So your last years, if your board is turning over every 2 years, in the second year, are you doing a strategic plan then? Should you have a plan of action each stage of how you're going to do that? And then once they become a member, then it's important that you do, the pieces here about training the board members. So they have to work hand in hand. The education before you recruit them, and then the education after they're board members. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. Provide resources on the organization. So for instance, if you are in the process of recruiting and I have a 2 or 3 weeks wait before, if that's the process that you're using, train me to become the board member you want me to be, right? So when I say about the speak the same language, the training that you give me is that mission, vision, goal. I need to understand the mission, the vision, and the goal of the organization. So once I understand that, then I can come on board and speak the same language as the members who are currently there. My language may be a little bit broken in the beginning, but at least I should have the foundational piece to get me going, right? So that's the opportunity of having a year-long process allow you to put the training in place to engage potential members. To be able, board members are the ones who are the voice of the organization when the executive director or the staff is not available. So I think it's important that they should be able to answer questions in the community about what do you do? What goods and service do you offer? And if a board member, after sitting on a board for a year, cannot do that, it goes back to the recruitment phase. It goes back to the orientation. When you did the recruitment, were you clear to that person about what would be entailed in the process? I talked about mission and vision already. That it has to keep with the training, right? And they have to be able to champion the organization in difficult time. Evaluate the process. Does it work? So if a board member is leaving halfway through, ask them why they're leaving. Does it have to do with expectations that were not set out, so therefore they can't meet it? So evaluate the process and evaluate how you do the recruitment. Because if you're recruiting the same type of people every time, and those are the people that are coming forth, then you as an organization, you as a board should be saying there's something wrong. Because if we're not engaging youth and we're not engaging seniors and we're not engaged in diversity and we're not engaging, male or female or transgender, on the board, then there's something we're not doing correctly. So evaluate your process so that you can understand how you're performing. And are you performing against the standards that are set out? Or are you just loosey-goosey? You just do your own thing. So again, it should be a systematic approach to ensure that before a board member comes on, they have a clear understanding, and after they come on, they also have a better understanding of how to do their job. Expectations. You know, you identify the strengths and weaknesses. So when you're doing the interview, this is the opportunity for you to kind of say, what is your experience? So people are talking about their historical experience. But what are the transferable skills that they're also going to be bringing with them? And it's important that you tap into that transferable skills. So weaknesses as well. So I can't do take minutes. So, okay, that doesn't prevent you from being on the board, but it might prevent you from being the secretary, right? I can't come to a 2-hour meeting a month. Well, our meetings are 3 hours, so there is a weakness potentially. Or the person has a limitation that this is where bias comes in, right? They haven't yet done their work where they can be in a group and deal with the issues at hand. So if that's a weakness, you have to examine, do you have the time within the year, the 2 years, to make their weakness a strength? Or is that a weakness that's an individual thing that that person needs to go work on? If we're talking about those people all that time, how do you get someone to stop saying those people to more of an inclusive language? Is that something that the board has within their mandate to train board members to be inclusive in language, right? So help each board member to understand their strength and their weakness before they come on board, so that once they've been identified, I don't have to spend so much time working on my strength, but I do need to spend a lot of time to try and make my weakness as strong, you know, as my strength. Know their roles. I keep repeating this over and over and over again. It is important that you know what it is you are volunteering to do, and understand the difference between your role as a board and the role of the executive director. And if you're the chair of the board, it's very important for you to understand the divide between those two roles. Depending on the type of board that you actually operate, this role can become very cloudy. So it's important that we understand the difference between chair of the board, executive director. Power for the executive director, power for the chair. And I spoke about that in previous seminar, web seminar that I've done. So if you want to check back on the 3 other ones we've done, I think this is covered in depth in those ones. So again, you know, what is expected of me? What governance do I follow? What is the term? Am I sitting for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? Okay, you have my pet peeve now. It's important to keep it fresh. Keeping it fresh doesn't mean the board have to turn over every year. But if you've been sitting on the board for 25 years, that's not volunteer anymore. That's become a lifestyle. So basically what I'm saying to you is, it's not jail sentence. 25 to life is way too long. At that point, you're ineffective as a board member. So 2 to 5, I think it's great time for you to achieve the goals, the mission, the values, the ideals of the organization without burning out. 25 years, you should buy stocks in that company. Anyway, celebrate success. So when the board has done stuff that is, you know, yay, we can give them a certificate. Those moments, aha moment as Oprah calls them, you should recognize them. But also celebrate the people who come forth to give their time to volunteer. Because they, remember, they're filling the spot of a potential, like it's a job, right? You couldn't employ an additional 20 people because you don't have the funding to do so. So if you have 10 or 15 board members who are volunteering, celebrate them. And I think in the orientation process as well as in the recruitment process, if you show them that, you know, here is a leaflet of previous volunteer appreciation, and this is what's being said about our organization. Again, it makes it even more appealing to me. Wow, people are talking about us. People are excited about this organization. This is something I want to be involved in. So make sure you celebrate the achievement of the members once they've been recruited. Okay? So retaining people, very difficult to do, right? So now you have me, what do you do with me, right? You have to continue to educate me. You have to continue to make the process inclusive. You have to, I have to balance, you know, the goals and responsibility. And the balance is key. I think if you don't balance the work, then people will not last very long in it. Growth equals survival. If you don't grow, you do not survive. We have questions about what is your opinion in regards to board members delivering training to staff? They shouldn't do it. Is basically when you say training, what training in particular? Training on how the board operates, or like when you're talking about training, staff development type of training? That would be, please clarify if you can tell me what type of training are you talking to. I think if you're going to do any strategic planning, staff development, I do not believe that it's something that a board should have. You should bring an outside person just to keep it fresh, to keep it transparent. And once you have formed a relationship with your staff, sometimes it's hard to challenge issues. So when I sat on the chair of boards, one of the things that I would do is when we were doing anything that involved the staff, we would bring, and I would talk with the executive director, and they would identify people in the community, and we would bring them in, and they would be responsible for doing the training. Because you are this employer of the staff, and I think sometimes those two relationship has enough of, it's a delicate relationship, and we want to continue to grow it, and it's not in your best interest, I think, to do staff development as a board. I think that's something that you should have funding in place for, to make sure that the staff is able to get that type of training. That's why you have OCASI. They do the PET funding, and they do a lot of wonderful resources and so forth, so that you can actually do the staff development where your board members are not taking on more. Unless it's part of your job description, it's not something that I would recommend. Okay, so if you're going to do staff development, then it needs to be in the description of the role that they're going to be doing. I hope that clears up that. Again, the people are here. What do you do with them? So again, as I was talking about effectiveness, to continue to grow the organization, and the only way you're going to retain board members, provide them with something. And the something is education, learning opportunity. Pillar to Post is a wonderful nonprofit organization that does a lot of stuff around board training. The Broadband Report also is a wonderful resource on how to set up nonprofit organization and the value placed on volunteerism in the community. The Maitrey Foundation does a lot of leadership stuff. And as I already said, OCASI, through the PET project, you're able to get funding to do a lot of staff development training and stuff. So there are resources out there to help you, to help your staff. There's resource in the community to also help the board so that they can become more effective. Be flexible and understanding to your board. Sometimes life gets in the way of a decision, and you just need to be understanding about that. And then, you know, as the chair of the board, it's your job to basically say, can you continue in your role? So if life starts to get in your way, you know, you have to talk to that member about how effective are they when life intervenes. So flexibility is necessary. Continue to manage. What do I mean by that? So follow up, you know, get things done. Nothing worse than, you know, you tell me a board meeting is going to be 3 hours, and 5 hours later we're still talking, you know, and we haven't been able to get to the issue. Time is precious, and people are even more so. And once you have people that are willing to give you their time, don't waste their time, okay? Identify change and develop a plan to meet the need. Recognize milestones. As I've said, celebrate them. Yay, volunteer appreciation. Write an article in the paper on behalf of how wonderful your board are. You know, all of those things basically say they need me, they want me, and I'm committed to them. Use the time effectively. Again, open communication with the chair, the board, and the staff helps growth. And most importantly, have an action plan of how you're going to do that. Provide orientation when you recruit your board. Recognize members. I've said this again. Lead by example. So if you're the chair of the board and you're saying one thing but you're doing another, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you should not even sit in that role. So lead by example, so that you're mirroring what it is that you want from new board members. Encourage relationship between the board and the staff. But when I say that, I don't mean relationship. I mean good communication relationship. We've had boards where a relationship is formed, and that's called a marriage, and at that point you need to say, I'm stepping down, okay? Very important piece, conflict of interest here. And interview existing board members to find out what worked for them, what didn't work for them, what should be changed, and how can their input help you grow. So any negative feedback you get from someone who is leaving a board, the bottom line is don't perceive that as negative, perceive that as an opportunity to grow. So if I'm telling you that the process doesn't work for me, you didn't give me a proper orientation, it wasn't clear my job description, you didn't appreciate me while I was here, that the board meeting ran way too long, we achieved nothing, those are all things that you need to put into practice so that when you are recruiting new board members, you might want to say, once a month or once every other month, we may have issues that may run past the 2 hours, but on a whole, our board meetings are 2.5 hours or 3 hours. That the term, if you say it is 2 years, at the end of the 2 years, this is what we want for you as you exit. So we do an interview when you are about to join the board. We also need to do an interview as you're leaving the board. It is not beneficial to an organization if people leave and you don't hear why they're leaving. If it's a natural transition, my term is up and I'm leaving, then that's different. But if I'm leaving midway through, it's very important that the recruitment committee has a conversation with those individuals to find out what went wrong. Is it a matter of you didn't have enough time, that the work is too onerous? Like, why are you leaving? So retaining the amount of work you put into retaining, you need to put the same amount of work into recruiting. They go hand in hand. So if you're not yet ready to do that, I would suggest that you step back as an organization, you step back as a board, and you look at your bylaws, you look at your committee structure, and basically say, okay, this is where we're falling short. This is what we need to do. And as an end result, we're going to step backwards, put those pieces into place, and once we've done that, then we're going to do a proactive recruitment strategy. And this is what, and build it into your strategic plan, right? You should have it built into a strategic plan. So I'm Yolande Charles. I thank you very much for your participation. I'm not sure if there's any more questions for today. Please join me on Thursday, July 25th, 10 to 11, where I will answer any questions that we didn't get to today or any questions that may come up in the interim. The next session is July 30th at 10. It is on orientation of the board. So I thank you very much again. And
Okay, thank you very much, Yolande. Remember to check us on Thursday, July 25th at 10 to 11 if you have any more questions at www.orgwise.ca. If you can't make that, feel free to email us questions also. We will thank you for all the great appreciation that we're getting. The slide deck will be available for reference once we've uploaded the webinar that's recorded. That'll be available in the next 3 days, as well as a plethora of resources that Yolande will have available to us on the ArgWise site. So we hope to see you on Thursday from 10 to 11.
And if you felt that we didn't elaborate enough, please come on Thursday with specific questions about your organization. So don't have to identify your organization, but specific issues around recruitment and retaining that you're dealing with. And it would be my pleasure to actually answer those on Thursdays. Again, thank you very much.